Hey everybody, this is Moss Jackson, Mondays with Moss. It's not Monday, actually, it's Thursday, but I was in San Diego on Monday, didn't have a chance to do a video. I think I did a video of a very interesting guy. You might want to check that out. A guy who is doing some writing and researching on drinking his own urine. It's called urine therapy, urine therapy. A little strange, but it was very fascinating talking to him. I'm looking forward to meeting more fascinating, extraordinary people, these people who kind of interest me. So this program, Mondays with Moss, is really about living an extraordinary life, of helping you to live extraordinarily, to be happy, successful, and to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So one of the things I've been talking about over the last month is this whole notion of the stories we tell ourselves. And actually, the stories we come to believe. Sometimes we can't tell the difference between a story and a fact. So I want to tell you a story today, okay? So this is a once upon a time story about a real client who I've been working with. And the name of this story is I Will Be Abandoned. I Will Be Abandoned. So what happened for him growing up was early in his life, 7 or 8 years of age. He was living with his parents, obviously, and his younger brother, about 6. His parents would go out Saturday night, and they would leave him to take care of his younger sibling. And he would get anxious when his parents were away. As it got darker and darker later and later, he got more and more fearful, actually terrified. He would hide in the bathroom, lock himself in the closet, just scared to death, could not go to sleep. When his parents came back home, he felt more relaxed, he could go to sleep. The problem was, this fear built up in him, and he experienced over time, because he and his parents never talked about it. He never went to his parents to say, Dad, Mommy, I get really scared when you leave. Can I get a baby? Can you get me a babysitter? It didn't occur to him, because in the mind of a 6, 7, or 8-year-old, they often don't think that way. They just feel the anxiety, feel the tension. He had strong emotions of anxiety and fear and terror. It felt in his body. It took his breath away. He felt pain in his chest. And he had this conclusion, this thought, like, I will be abandoned. That's why I'm telling you the story. His title is I Will Be Abandoned. And he never talked about it, so he never gave the front part of the brain, which is the frontal lobes, a chance to deal with the anxiety lodged in the limbic system in the back of his brain, in the survival part of the brain. So those two brains never talked to each other. The fearful brain took over. He felt terrified. And it stayed lodged in his body in terms of an emotional memory that forever, because he never did any work to really deal with it. Now he and I are dealing with it. So hopefully I'll be able to bridge the gap, the space between his back brain where the fire alarm is danger, danger. I'll tell you about how he feels danger now. And the front of his brain where he could think it over and say, is this really true? Is this really happening to me? Is this really about abandonment or something else? So, in present times, how does this I'm going to be abandoned show up? Well, he could be working. He's the boss of his own company. And if he sees or hears two fellow workers chatting amongst themselves, particularly if one of them glances at him, he gets that same feeling, like the smoke detector, the smoke alarm in the back of his brain starts ringing really, really loud. He starts to feel the tension in his chest and his throat and his stomach, feels like throwing up. He feels the anxiety that they're going to leave him, and he makes the conclusion, see, I knew I was right. People really don't want to be with me. They don't really love me, don't care about me, and they're going to leave me. They're going to take clients and abandon me and hurt me. So what happens here is that this is trauma that occurred at a young age. He wasn't beaten up. He wasn't really abandoned. He couldn't cope with being alone. He never talked about it. Parents never talked about it with him. So this emotional, physical memory, I want you to get this. Emotional memories are physical, and they stay lodged in our body, anywhere between our jaws. Sometimes we clench our jaws, our throat, our chest, our stomach, our back, for carrying too much pressure or responsibility. And in the present time, even though it's not logical when two people are talking, he jumps to the false conclusion, which is the way a 7, 8, or a 9-year-old child would react. They jump to a false conclusion because they can't see perspective. They're not good at looking at it from different angles. He just felt the fear, and this conclusion jumped at him. Actually, he didn't jump to the conclusion. The conclusion jumped in him, and he ended up terrified that he would be abandoned. So what does this mean in terms of living an extraordinary life? You can't live an extraordinary life if you're terrified and triggered the way this man was triggered. So in my coaching, I'm doing several things with them. So if you were to come to see me for coaching for kind of breaking these limiting beliefs that really limit you and paralyze you from having a great life, I'll be working on awareness. What's he feeling in his body? What's his level of tension? 1 to 10, 10 being really terrible. Where's it located in his body? I get him to breathe into that part of his body, just to move away from the thinking, because the thinking is a terrible place. He's already made the conclusion that he's in danger. But if I get his body to relax, then he won't feel in danger, and then I can start to change the story. So I want to recognize that he has a story. It's just a program. It's a story in his mind, a movie that he's watching, and he's believing it. It's like being hypnotized by the old story. But he has to see that it's a story, not a fact. So he has to be able to say, by the frontal brain thinking, hey, am I making up a story? Is this really true? What can I do to figure out what happened? If he self-regulates and calms himself down, gets his anxiety down to a 2, 3, or 4, because when he thinks this bad memory, he goes up to an 8, 9, or 10, really terrified. So I can calm his body down. If I calm your body down, then we talk about what's the conversation you could have with the person. The conversation he needs to have with these people is to go to them and say, I just was noticing you guys were talking the other day, and I think, you really are valuable for me, and I was concerned that, is there anything going on that I need to know that I might be helpful for? Because I really value you being part of my team and my company. So you have to be engaged. So the social brain, me, you, him, his associate, we need to talk and exchange, not from the point of terror. Got to calm the terror down. Got to calm the panic down. Get your breath back. Think about, is this a story or a fact? Check it out, clarify, and take some action. So that's really the way I would handle that. But I wanted to share that story with you because next week, I want to get back to how does the brain work? Why do we end up with these terrible stories that we believe and we don't even know it's a story? So until next week, Mondays with Moss, I'll get back on Monday and talking with you and sharing another story with you. In fact, I think I might share a personal story using this model of something happens in the past. It's very painful. We have a thought, a physical sensation, and emotion. It gets crystallized in our body and our mind, body work together, and then we carry it into the future, and we don't really question it because it's unconscious, because it's formulated in the mind of a young child. All right? Anyway, until then, have an extraordinary week, and I wish you the best, and I'll talk to you next Monday.